Jasmine Bennett boarded the plane, her heels clicking on the polished floor as she adjusted the strap of her designer laptop bag. First-class accommodations were a well-earned luxury for her, a reward for years of tireless work. As she settled into the plush leather seat, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. This seat symbolized how far she'd come. She placed her bag beneath the seat and pulled out her phone, briefly glancing at her packed schedule. A significant civil rights case awaited her. But for now, this flight was a rare reprieve. Jasmine closed her eyes, leaning back as the soft hum of the engines began to soothe her. The murmur of passengers faded into the background until a sharp voice interrupted her tranquility. "Ma'am," the flight attendant said, her smile tight. "May I see your ticket, please?" Opening her eyes, Jasmine looked up to see a woman in her mid-40s with a neatly pressed uniform and impeccably styled blonde hair. Her voice carried a forced politeness that belied her intent. Jasmine handed over her boarding pass without hesitation. Madeline Carter, the flight attendant, inspected the ticket, her lips pressed together as she scrutinized it a moment too long. Returning it, she murmured, "Just making sure." Sometimes passengers get confused about seating arrangements. Jasmine raised an eyebrow, her voice steady. "I'm not confused. I know exactly where I'm supposed to be." Madeline gave a clipped laugh. "Of course." But as she moved away, she muttered under her breath, "First class isn't what it used to be." The comment stung, but Jasmine chose to focus on her emails rather than confront her. Yet, her sense of peace didn't last. Madeline's actions became increasingly conspicuous: subtle delays in service, sidelong glances, and whispered remarks to her colleagues. When Madeline spilled water on Jasmine's tray table and barely offered an apology, Jasmine's patience began to wear thin. By the time the plane was in the air, Jasmine was no longer relaxed. She noticed the younger flight attendant accompanying Madeline looking visibly uneasy as her colleague continued targeting Jasmine. Finally, Madeline approached Jasmine directly, clipboard in hand. She leaned over and said, "Ma'am, I need to speak with you about your seat. There seems to have been an error in the seating arrangement." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "An error?" She pulled her boarding pass from her blazer pocket. "This is the seat I paid for. Is there a problem?" Madeline hesitated, her professionalism faltering. "It appears this seat may have been assigned incorrectly. Would you mind moving to the main cabin? We'll ensure you're comfortable." Jasmine's polite smile turned steely. "This is my seat. If there's an issue, I suggest you check with whoever assigned it." Nearby passengers began to take notice, their murmurs growing louder. Madeline flushed but pressed on. "I'm sure we can resolve this without any fuss." Jasmine's voice grew firmer. "I'm not making a fuss. I'm staying in my assigned seat." The younger flight attendant fidgeted nervously nearby, clearly uncomfortable with the exchange, but unwilling to intervene. Madeline leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I'm giving you a chance to handle this quietly. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Jasmine met her gaze unflinchingly. "The only person making this difficult is you. If you're done harassing me, I'd like to enjoy my flight." The tension in the cabin was palpable as Madeline stormed away. Her face flushed. Jasmine exhaled, her pulse racing but her composure intact. She knew this wasn't the end of it. Moments later, Madeline returned with a younger flight attendant in tow, pointing at Jasmine. "She's refusing to move." Madeline hissed, her voice low but laced with venom. The younger flight attendant hesitated, clearly uneasy. Jasmine folded her arms and said firmly, "If you plan to escalate this, go right ahead. My lawyer will be very interested to hear how your airline treats paying customers." By now, passengers were openly watching the exchange. One man discreetly filmed the interaction on his phone, his instincts telling him this incident was far from over. Madeline's smugness cracked. "You people always make everything about race," she muttered, too low for anyone but Jasmine to hear. Jasmine's response was sharp but measured. "And by you people, you mean?" Madeline's face turned red, but before she could respond, another passenger, a middle-aged woman, spoke up from 2 rows back. "She's right. You've been targeting her since the moment she boarded." The confrontation snowballed as more passengers chimed in, voicing their observations and outrage. Meanwhile, the man filming adjusted his angle, determined to document every second. Madeline, visibly rattled, tried to regain control. "I'm simply doing my job," she said, but her voice wavered under the scrutiny. Jasmine's calm voice cut through the noise. "Your job doesn't include harassment. This isn't over."